pain and suffer, would you say that's fine if someone consents to it?
I would say that's not up to me. I don't
So
see.
if a human being wants to say, yeah, crucify me,
I think that should be questioned. I think that should be questioned. I don't
we
think
need
that it should just be
we need to objectively
freely
understand
allowed,
that.
But I don't see the comparison that you're making.
I'm not making any comparison.
And
I'm
between
simply.
taking away the lives of animals against their will. Because these animals
Let's
are.
think about with will. If somebody wants to say, okay, you can crucify me,
Do you think animals have
Human
the ability
beings-
to give consent for us to
human
take their lives
beings,
away?
human beings are animals as well. You understand it,
yes,
right?
yes.
So if a human says, you can torture me, now are you saying it's fine if there's someone consents? Let's take the consent issue. Let's use about consent. There's two things.
animals
One about
can't-
brains, one about nervous
non-human
system,
animals
and one about
cannot
consent.
Non-human animals cannot consent.
No, we're not talking about we're talking about living things.
We're talking about veganism though, right? That's
See?
the whole idea. I'm not talking about living things. Plants are living things. I'm not talking about plants.
Veganism is about what?
I'm talking about anything that has the capacity to feel pain and suffering.
What about humans?
Plants do not.
Humans?
Well, if you're talking about taking away the lives of humans, that's cannibalism. That's not veganism.
You just said you are talking about veganism, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to we're consuming meat. Meat comes from which beings? You're talking about sentient beings. You're talking about something that has a brain
Sentient
and a
beings,
nervous
yes.
system, something that experiences pain.
Yes.
Human beings experience pain.
Yes.
So now let's understand about consent. If a human says, you can crucify me, torture me, cut my hands off, something, right? And consents to that, are you saying it's okay?
I don't agree with that. I think that should be questioned. No, I don't think that's
So,
okay.
so it's not about
But that's
consent
not what
then.
my
So
argument
let's
is. Do you think that animals
you're not really
out
responding and engaging with the questions.
Because you're
So
going
if
off
we
on a
have,
tangent that I don't think is relevant to veganism
it's very
whatsoever.
important. If you
It's
if
not
the
relevant
issues,
to the argument
okay,
that I'm trying to convey.
are you saying the animals give consent?
No.
Right. So is the issue about consent then?
Personally, I think
Not
that
personally,
there is no way.
objectively.
There is no way for us to know whether animals consent. I mean, as someone who has been to a slaughterhouse myself and seen 2,000 pigs killed in a
Emotional
matter of
argument
a couple
again.
of
Let's
hours,
stick to the points.
do you
Can
think
you
that
not
there
be
is a humane
emotional
way-
and just let's discuss
do you
this
think
on
that
an
there is
intellectual
a humane
level?
way to take away the life of an animal that
You
wants
see,
to live?
you're again bringing up some red herrings and strawmans. Let's deal with the subject matter.
I'm talking about veganism.
I'm talking about
something separate.
I'm talking about your objection to consuming meat because what it is, you are actually making those animals that you are trying to consume suffer pain. Right. So, are you saying if an animal were to consent, it's okay? Is that what you're
I
saying?
think that's a ridiculous argument to make. I don't think that that's.
So the issue is not about
I don't
consent
think
then?
that comes into it at all.
Good.
I think that we're talking about taking away the lives of non-human animals that do not have the ability to consent.
Okay.
You know,
Have you
these
stopped all the
animals
lions
don't want
eating
to
the
have their
zebras?
lives. Okay. If you see a gazelle running down the street, is your instinct to run after it and tear into its flesh with your bare
Do you hear my question?
Is that your instinct?
No. My instinct is
because you're
for
not
you to
an
respond
obligate
that
carnivore.
when you see a lion running after a deer or a
Yes.
zebra, are you stopping that? And
No,
would you stop it?
because they are obligate carnivores. They do it out of necessity to survive.
Okay, good.
We are not obligate carnivores.
Now we're moving on. So
we
your
don't
question,
need to take
so your
away the
argument for
lives of
veganism,
animals in order for our own benefit.
let's understand that. So your argument for veganism is as long as it's for necessity, it's okay.
Yes.
If it's not necessity,
If it's out of necessity, yes, it's okay. We do
you
what
can
we need
eat,
to do
for
in order
example,
to
if there's
survive.
no plant products
Yes.
and there's only chicken,
Yes.
then yeah, out of necessity, you should eat
Yes,
chicken.
Yes.
Yeah?
I'm completely fine with that.
Right.
I
Is
don't
that what
see
you
the
what you're saying?
argument in that.
Yeah.
but that's
So
down to your
actually,
choice. That's
so actually, you're not actually saying everyone should be a vegan, as long as you
In
don't,
our society-
as
You
long
should be.
as,
You should
as
be.
long
Because
as
you live in London.
you don't suffer the animal, you don't just, eat out of luxury, yeah, for good taste. You're saying it's okay to be a carnivore.
I think that if we're doing it out of necessity,
No, this is the only reason,
then
my
it's not a
friend. This
moral
sign is
issue.
the only reason, okay?
Right?
You're overcomplicating it.
Yeah, so actually I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I would say people are actually harming and suffering the animals too much, and that needs to stop. Not only during transportation, not only during raising them and breeding them,
So why are
there's
we
too much.
doing it?
Wait a second, let's deal with the real issue. So now, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about people actually suffering, causing the animals to suffer. So why don't you go one step further and say, look, plants also feel pain because they respond to pain stimulus. So why don't you stop eating plants?
Plants do not feel pain. Okay,
Again, there has been already Nobel Prizes won on this issue by Mr. Bolshu, right? That animals, just like plants,
Let's say that they do feel pain.
plants.
Do you realize that 80% of the crops that we grow go towards feeding livestock? So we're killing more plants.
You're actually dealing with something that. Look, let's talk about the understanding of veganism and carnivorism and so on. So veganism, is it linked with some kind of belief system?
It's the belief that these animals are not here on this planet for us to use or exploit unnecessarily, right?
Did God intend us to be vegan?
So you're not sacrificing anything by going vegan. You're just not taking what was never yours to begin with.
Now I want to know whether this is actually linked to an ideology. Has God created human beings to be vegans?
I don't believe in God myself.
So it seems like every vegan I'm speaking to, they have an ideology of not believing in a God. So it's actually linked to a belief in the non-existence of a God, isn't it? So veganism seems to be okay.
Christians,
Hang on. Are you a vegan?
Yeah, of course.
Do you believe in God? Right. So the two vegans. Any other vegans who believes in God? Right. So now we are actually coming to a
I know religious people
point
in the
where
movement.
veganism seems to be a particular ideology now in this time, driven by atheism, agnosticism. So, hang on. Why is it that I don't see any believer in God among you? Then I will make some arguments.
No, religion has no bearing in the arguments against animal use and exploitation.
I just established that there seems to be a link already. Any other vegans here who believe in God?
I know plenty of vegans myself.
Sorry?
I believe in a divine creator.
Are you a vegan?
Yeah.
Good. So if your God tells you to eat animals, would you do so?
God doesn't tell me to eat animals.
Oh. So which God is that tells you not to eat animals?
Which God tells you to eat animals?
No,
This is about consciousness.
Wait. So you say you believe in a God. Where
I'm
has
saying
your
it's a divine creator. I
Wait
don't
a
know
minute.
whether it's a God or not.
Where has your divine creator communicated with you that
Did last week about flat Earth? You argue about everything.
one moment. Another red herring argument. Flat Earth. What does banana and flat Earth have to do with veganism here?
Doesn't
my
I'm just
friend-
saying you was here last week.
Sister, one second.
You seem to like an argument.
Because now you made a point that you are actually believing in a divine creator, where your divine creator has mentioned to you that you should stop eating animals.
You should know. You should know with your consciousness.
I'm asking
shouldn't
you.
kill another animal. and
So
eat
where has he mentioned that?
it. There's no mention. You should
So,
understand that.
so it's your own made up belief.
Have you not seen an animal cry because it loses
Enough
its
said.
child?
Any other vegans who believe in
Are
God?
you vegan? Are you vegan?
No, I am not vegan, but
Why
I
aren't you
can be.
vegan? Why aren't you vegan?
Okay, I'll tell you why I'm not vegan. Even though I'm against animal suffering, even though I'm against all this overproduction of food and so on and so forth, you know, you don't have to eat animals. You can actually have all the proteins, as I mentioned to you, from plant-based. But why I'm not vegan is because I am not designed to be a vegan. Look at your teeth. You've got teeth designed to chew meat. You've got enzymes in your stomach designed to what? Digest animal proteins. So in your body, even from biology, you are not designed to be a herbivore.
Hold on, one second. Do you not believe we can live perfectly healthy lives living off plants?
Let's go back to the question.
No,
Hang on.
Answer my question.
Wait.
because My question has bearing within what
No.
you've just brought up.
You seem to think veganism.
Why are you shouting, actually?
I'm not shouting. I'm making everyone to hear. Can everyone hear? Good. Thank you.
But we don't really.
Is veganism something that is of choice? Then you can be a vegan by your choice, or you don't have to be vegan by your choice.
It's a moral
Do I have the
stance.
choice?
It's a moral stance.
Hang on.
It's a
Moral.
it's
When
an
it comes
ethical
to
stance.
morality, do you believe in objective morality? And what's the point? You're talking from a relative moral standpoint. I may have a higher moral standard than you. if I believe in an objective morality.
We have as a society, we have an overall basis. We know it's wrong to rape, we know it's wrong to steal, we know it's wrong to murder, right? So now we can pass that down onto sentient creatures that are causing us no harm. Why would we murder, torture and enslave them when we don't need to? We don't need to be eating them, we don't need to be using them, we don't need to be testing them. They're not for our entertainment. Oh, no, Joy, I'm still talking.
Yeah, sure.
Right? They are living creatures. Why are you so arrogant that you can think you can just arbitrarily take their life away from them without causing you no harm? Like, you do not need to eat them. You can live perfectly healthy lives living off plants. That is the end of the argument. There's no argument against veganism. I don't even know why you're bothering.
Listen, that really shows you the level of intellectual argumentation that you're bringing in the discussion. The only honest argument against veganism is that if you don't give a
shit.
Right. So that speaks of your intellectual argumentation level. Never mind. So my point is this. So basically, you are against those people who take the lives of animals. Unnecessarily. And animals, they take the life of another animal because of necessity. Yeah. So now we can look at your argument. If you take the life of another animal out of necessity, you're saying I don't have a problem with that.
I can't control what wild creatures
No.
in the wild.
If human beings live on animal meat out of necessity, you're saying you don't have a problem with that.
No, I mean, I'd prefer that they move because
No, it's not prefer. Your argument now has totally crumbled. I don't understand how your argument was in the first place. If you're saying it's all about necessity.
Yeah.
If someone eats animal out of necessity, you're saying it's okay.
Yeah. Do you need to eat
Wait a moment. Excuse me.
Do you need to eat
Excuse me. I want to understand the argument again. If someone consumes meat out of necessity, why is that okay?
Well, some people are carnivores, some animals
Why is that
are
okay?
carnivores.
You're still taking life of another animal, life of another sentient being according to your definition, life of another animal which feels and experiences pain. Why?
Veganism is about us individually. Why
Would you happy?
vegan?
Can you ask again?
The question, if you are willing to accept the eating of animals out of necessity by human beings, then by extension you should be willing to accept the eating of human beings by human beings out of necessity.
Yeah, that's out of necessity. But I'm not controlling. Those random people in this made-up scenario. This is all about here and now.
Scenario?
This is here and now. This is about what you can do right here, right
it's
now.
It's not here now. Let me. Now I'll interrupt. Right? So allow me.
No, I understand your question.
No, I'm going past that question now. I saw how far you understood it. So
I'm asking you a question now. Doesn't it go back and forth? Why can't I ask the question? Why are you just jumping in when I'm trying to explain
I don't need to jump
something?
in. I don't need to speak. You don't want to speak, it's up to you.
Why aren't you vegan? Why aren't you vegan right here, right now?
I've already answered. I would like to hear it.
You don't give a shit.
If you don't want to speak to me, well,
I've already said. I would like to hear
you
your
don't want
point.
to speak to me. I don't need to speak.
No, you can speak to me. I would like to hear, and I'm sure everyone else is interested. What do you want to say?
Well, there are a couple of points. One is, of course, that it's established now from what you've even said. A, that you don't think that it's compulsory to eat meat. The point you appear to be making is, and I would agree with that if meat is required, well, A, that we are biologically built to eat meat and it's not kind of something that is against our biology. That B, that if it's required out of necessity, you should eat it. And therefore you don't kind of call yourself a vegan. Right? That's basically your argument, right? Because you're not, your point appears to be that they are being inconsistent and insisting on applying a relative morality, which is clearly relative to circumstance, as a general principle, right? That's basically it. And I agree. You are pretending that there's a general principle when you don't have a general principle. You have a principle that is only applicable in these current specific circumstances, where in a rich society, people, with the kind of resources that this society has, people are able to survive without veganism. The history of mankind is such that they could not survive like this. In a few years' time, if supposing we have a downturn in the civilization, if the civilization collapses, people will have to become non-vegan. Veganism, the ability to survive on veganism depends on a certain level of knowledge of what to eat and what not to eat, much greater than non-veganism does.
Google's really good with that. Just
No,
ask
no,
Google.
no. It requires. So it requires.
help you
Yeah,
out,
precisely.
bang,
It requires
know
the
what to do,
existence
how
of.
to cut
It
that out,
requires the
dairy.
existence of Google. That's exactly the point I was making. It requires the information.
Yeah, it's easy.
In the
You can all
absence.
you can all access
No,
that.
no. Understand one further point. Veganism is. No one is arguing that veganism is bad. It is the insistence. Yeah,
You have to be a
why are you getting
psychopath to be arguing that it's
You're a
bad.
very angry man. You're a very angry man. Calm down. So,
This guy's worrying up.
Look like the level of argumentation.
yeah.
You can't argue against.
Calm down. So,
Calm down. He's raising his voice.
okay, so A, your argument is relative, as I said. B, you're insisting on it as a general principle. C, no one here is arguing that veganism is bad. All they are arguing is that you don't insist on it as a general principle.
Well, it's down to your own. I mean, are you against animal cruelty?
Yes, you said
Yes,
that.
there you go. That's
You
it.
said that.
That's all veganism is.
No, it's not.
We can
It's
live.
more than
No,
that.
hold on. I'm
That's
still
just false.
talking. When we can live in a world like right here, right now in London, we've got abundance of products we can buy that don't contain animal products, that don't contain suffering, torture, murder, right? We can buy them, we can live healthy lives, living off that. So therefore, it's our moral obligation to choose those and products that derive from enslavement, exploitation, use, and murder for a completely unnecessary reason. That is it. You're overcomplicating the matter.
Cool. So now may I say that everything you've said, I agree with. So he agrees. I'm pretty sure. If food that is derived from exploitation unnecessarily, food that is derived from murder, be it animal or be it non-animal, okay? Derived from exploitation, slavery, murder, should not be eaten. It should be. Now, the point still remains. Veganism is more than that. Vegan is about an ideological stance which says that in no circumstances, except a very circumstance set, should we eat anything other than vegetables. We should not eat meat. This is, you're putting ideology where ideology is not required. All you require is simple, basic morality. We agree with the morality. You understand? You're putting. Okay, got
It's down on the individual. So like now you and me one-on-one is what can you do right here, right now? When you go to a supermarket, when you buy these products, you're promoting this thing.
I fully
you don't need to.
I fully accept.
So
Let me tell you where I come from. So you understand that I think modern methods of farming are utterly destructive of the ecology. Okay? I think modern methods of economy are utterly destructive of the way that we can live. I fully agree with that. All right? We don't have to agree on that. It doesn't matter. The point is that the basic principles are the same. You do not need to presume that I'm on the other side of that just because I disagree with your insistence on veganism as an ideology to be imposed on everybody. Human history could not have existed without. We could not have got here without eating animal protein.
Can I just okay. It's different here. The way I talk to the public is a lot different to the way I actually talk in Speakerscorner. It's a bit more, you shout and right. So it's down to what we can do individually. We all have to take responsibility for our own individual actions. We can't pass off what would happen if we're in a desert island, what would happen if there's this situation, what happens with the Eskimos, and what do the lions do in nature. It's down to what we can do as individuals. We are destroying our planet. We are destroying our environment with animal agriculture.
This is not consistent with what you've just said.
No, but it's just my way of engaging in conversation.
Well, no, that's not.
Why? But that is the only honest argument in this with the people I'll be talking to right here, right now. That is the only
One
honest
further
argument.
point on this, you mentioned about moral obligation. So do I assume that you are really propagating against any product that comes from occupied territories, like in West Bank and other places where Israel actually has occupied? Yeah? So all the vegans, those who support this ideology or moral obligation to that, you are actually with the Palestinians. Excuse me?
Because they're enslaved.
Because they're enslaved.
Their products are part of slavery.
And in their territory which has been occupied, they're making products and they're selling in shops.
Okay, you don't see that.
And you're buying them. So basically you are now also like Googling and finding out which of the Israeli products you should boycott that comes from occupied territories.
I will. Yeah, cool. Definitely.
Yeah?
I will.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So that means you are consistent with your moral obligation.
I will.
So once you become vegan, your sphere of
passion extends. So I'm starting to buy less plastic, buy bamboo toothbrushes, you know, trying to be less environmentally destructive, because that's veganism is just the start. And you start thinking about more.
I cycle everywhere, except
you know,
I cycle everywhere.
yeah, we can all do our bit, but the biggest thing. That's veganism is just the start, and you start thinking about more.
I cycle everywhere, except
you know,
I cycle everywhere.
yeah, we can all do our bit, but the biggest impact that you can have both on the animals and the environment is veganism.
Well,
And then,
Actually, if you become a Muslim, then you will see the greatest impact, the biggest impact. Then you will be what? No to any racism, no to any kind of differentiation,
to forced economic
no
methods.
to, no to unjustified warfare on people, killing them, pillaging them, and so on.
No to destruction of the
can do that
economy.
without-
No to destruction of even.
I'm against all of those things.
When you become a vegan, I'm saying Islam provides you even a better solution for your standard.
But I don't know everything he just said.
I will tell you what the problem is.
Necessarily, yes. Allow me to explain.
Let me explain to you. What's your name? Mark. Alright, put it there. Right. Now, there's a difficulty with the art. Alright? So you say that without religion, or without, basically, I'll use slightly different terminology, without shared ideology, without so largely, in fact, imposed ideology, you can achieve this, right? You cannot. So I'll give an example. I'm walking down the street, and a little old lady is walking down the other way. I'm walking on the footpath, little old lady is walking towards me. I'm a nasty bastard. So I'm hefty and nasty compared to her. And
She must be tiny.
and she's a tiny little old lady hobbling along, and I get upset with her blocking my path, and I push her. You are a nice guy, you're walking past, you get very angry with you. You say, why did you? She falls down. Okay? You're a nice guy, you say to me, why did you do that? Couldn't you see the lady was hobbling along, and you could easily have got out of the way. Why did you put your way through? I say, well, she can't walk properly. It's her affair. I had a right to walk here. You get even angry, you get upset with me, and you say, I'm going to stop you. And you get very angry with me, and you beat me up. Okay? I say, okay, you're going to beat me up. This is my neighborhood. I'm going to bring my friends. I'm going to beat you up. And so next day we meet, and you bring your friends, I bring my friends, and we have a war. Let's see who's got the big army, right? And it escalates. We get bigger, and that's the way the world works. It does have to, but that
Love fights hate.
No, the fact is.
But what's that got to do with religion and veganism? I don't understand
What you're saying
where
is
it's
that
going.
the way it's going is that you're saying that you're putting an idea.
It's not an idea.
Well, it's
The moral basis, our moral
fine,
baseline.
all our, it's an idea. Which
I mean,
it's
it
a
was
good
an
idea.
idea to have like slaves at some point.
It's a good idea. I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
It's
an
catching
idea,
on,
for God's
basically,
sake.
anyway.
All right. So you've got a good idea.
Yeah.
And
Solid, it's solid.
You've got a solid good idea, and you think that everybody's going to adopt it just by
I hope
word of mouth.
we encourage,
No,
we
we
encourage,
encourage,
educate,
we talk to
educate.
people.
So
We're not dictating, we aren't
Right.
dictating really.
So now, if you look at the world as it is today, the vast majority of people who are involved in farming, certainly on the industrial scale, all the industrial farmers, everybody understands this art.
Yeah.
There's nobody,
I'm loving this.
there's
Go
not,
on, carry on.
there is not one government on the face of the earth who does not understand this art.
Yeah.
All the ecological artists.
Yeah.
What are they doing? They are supporting the destruction of the ecology. Spot it?
Under what?
They are supporting the destruction of the ecology.
Currently, yes. Yeah.
Even though they fully understand all the arguments.
Yeah.
That's why we have to speak the way we do. You have to accept the right morality which everybody shares, and then you can proceed. You cannot be a
What was their moral standard?
No, but we're paying.
Knowing this,
because what they say is
you see there's a higher moral standard than them?
you see the point I was making about the guy who's walking on the road, the guy who's walking on the road pushing the little old lady across, they are these guys. They are these guys with their armies.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. And our point is, we're going out, and this is why it's a grassroots movement, and we're going out
But
and
I'm
talking
saying
to
there is a higher moral
individuals,
standard.
and as individuals change and
Islam
make that.
offers you that higher moral standard
For you,
for
for
everything.
you.
Love
For
and
you.
compassion. No, for everybody.
But we
And
have
this
that
is-
without Islam.
Perhaps because actually, this is what we said. You
No,
even
no,
said
no.
you even
I've just told you, it
supported
doesn't work.
cannibalism.
No.
It is out of necessity, and that's love.
Well, no, actually, to be perfectly honest, I say my moral standing is if you're in a situation and you're going to die and there's someone else, any sentient being, you should starve yourself to death. Because why take the life of someone who's causing you no harm and is living perfectly healthy when you're the one struggling? It's your own fault. I'm not saying everyone else is on that sort of level. That's my own personal moral
But
standing.
you can't, you
okay?
see, look, now you're in a sticky wicket because obviously you know perfectly well you can't help destroying bacteria all the time and all that. So where do you draw
Well, it's
the
just,
line? What do you
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
What do you mean
We're
by-
living in an
Yeah,
imperfect
so-
world.
so
We can
you're-
try to do better, but
Well-
the biggest destruction,
You're
the
being
biggest
totally
impact we're
inconsistent.
having is the eating animal products right now. And that's a supply and demand. It only exists.
The point you seem to be all missing is the inconsistency in your approach.
And what's
We Muslims,
inconsistent?
we bring Islam to you to be absolutely consistent in what we do. You're okay with taking antibiotics, killing the bacteria, killing the viruses, killing fungi.
So you're okay with
Yep.
breathing. You're okay with breathing.
Life. You're okay of killing other lives. And then the lady I spoke to earlier, she's saying, oh, but they're not feeling pain because they're not sentient, they haven't got a brain, they haven't got... So you're actually saying the only thing that experience pain are those who have a brain and a nervous
That may
system.
be true, but the point is, why
You're
is
inconsistent
pain? Why
as
is
well.
pain?
You're so
why are you raising
inconsistent.
pain above life? Bacteria have
I
life.
don't understand how, like, surely, like, what we've said enough words
Do
now
you
that
see this
should be.
argument now?
No, I'm
Instead of talking about pain and suffering, your question was actually about life. You're taking the life of a bacteria. Life. You're not worried
You
about
find this
it.
argument laughable.
It's about minimizing
People find the vegan
exploitation.
argument laughable.
It's not about-
No, majority of people
Just
are
by-
laughing
just
at
by
this, trust
being
me.
alive,
You're
we're
being
gonna
the
have
minority
some
if you think
impact.
a
That's what
bacteria
we're
is in the
about
same
winning.
level.
Would you
No one said
kill
it's the same level.
someone, make you live?
Come on, it's
Is that what you're saying?
sentient.
I
It's simple.
personally-
It's such a simple.
It's about sentience.
Would try
It's
not
about
to.
sentience.
So when you have a
Sentient.
severe infection
Brain.
that is going to kill you, you will not take antibiotics to kill those infective organisms to make you live.
So you're putting bacteria on the same
Alive,
plane.
alive.
You keep on interrupting. You keep on interrupting.
Alive.
Yeah, but
Alive.
you're putting bacteria on the same
So
plane.
let me answer this.
As pigs, cows,
Allow me.
fish.
Allow me.
Why is
Yeah,
that
it's
the
absolutely
same?
brutal. It's one of the like halal meat, halal slaughter. Is
Allow me.
absolutely.
We can discuss halal separately.
We can discuss that and show you how it's used.
I've seen
Regarding
it.
bacteria,
Seen it. It's absolutely.
Let's talk about
revolting.
bacteria.
Oh, no, it's ridiculous.
It's a ridiculous.
Absolutely
let me
ridiculous.
make the point.
You are.
Let me make the point regarding bacteria.
No, I mean, we're wasting our time. We could be talking to actually compassionate people. That
What
would
about
make
the
a
bacteria?
difference. We are wasting our time talking to
That's
you.
fine. Please continue. What is it about
I don't
bacteria?
myself
I'm
can
going to
even
talk
talk
to
to people who don't want to talk.
normal, bloody
If you are willing to,
intellectuals, actually.
I
Like talking about bacteria.
I don't believe in talking with, I know you like, you talk to
No,
everybody.
the reason why...
I only talk to people who want to talk.
Exactly. I mean, obviously he's lost his argument already. That's why he had to go.
Well-
No problem. Let's talk about bacteria.
Well, it's not because I don't.
Let's talk about
understand the
bacteria then.
relevance-
Thank you.
What's the relevance of
All right,
bacteria?
let
It
me-
makes no
Alive.
sense.
Alive.
Sentient life. We're talking about
Check I'm going to ping you.
Okay, the point.
What
We
are
are,
the
we are,
insertions?
we are, we are multicellular animals. We are some multicellular beings. What's a multicellular? What a multicellular being is? A multicellular being is simply a colony. A colony of single cells. Alright? Not that different from bacteria, just not that different, honestly. You examine it at a detailed level. Okay? The pretense, what you call sentience and so on, these are abstractions, these are kind of emerging phenomena. Which are, you can, they are emerging phenomena which arise from the complexity of the interactions of these objects, right? Which make us to pretend that they are at an elevated level above the bacteria is just a pretense. Anyway, you have understood the point. If you have not understood the point, there's not much.
I really don't see the relevance.
Do you understand the point?
So, no,
Okay,
because
let me try to explain it in a different way.
I
The difference between a human being and a bacterial colony bacteria has single bacteria.
That we are a colony.
A colony, but bacteria doesn't have. They actually divide and they're in a colony. Human beings, our cells, there are also lots of cells together.
We are a colony of bacteria.
So you're a colony of cells. Bacteria, they're a colony of cells. The individuals also they live together as a colony.
Between, for example, cancer cells and
Human beings, are you not saying human beings are not colony
Okay,
of
so
cells?
you see, in your eyes, you see no difference between bacteria, non-human animals and humans. Is that what you're saying?
That's not the point.
Well, that's what you're saying to us.
No,
That's what you're
I need
saying
to
to
understand
us.
the argument first.
Understand the point. There is obviously difference.
Yeah.
There are many differences.
Yeah.
Many differences. But the point was being made about the difference between life, okay, and whether it is why it is that one would value veganism as opposed to non-veganism. Okay, why would one do that? Because of a certain principle that you're applying. You are applying some sort of principle that certain kinds of life are superior to other kinds of life. You're applying that, which is fair enough. So you're drawing a line somewhere. I'm saying that line is arbitrary. Okay, it has to be arbitrary. Okay, that's all. It is we agree that it is that. We agree that there are things that such as pain and so on. But to pretend some things which pretend that things which are arbitrary are not arbitrary but absolute is to make a mistake. You are making that mistake.
So we're drawing a line. Yeah, we're drawing a line
We
between.
agree with you that you should draw the line with compassion, right? That's right. But you should not draw the line with dogmatism, where dogmatism is not the right
killing
thing.
animals unnecessarily.
Is that?
Is
We
that a
agree
show
on
of
that.
compassion?
No, but we agree that we should not kill animals unnecessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
We agree on that.
So that is the whole
That's
foundation of
veganism.
That
You
is
just
literally-
agreed with
That
veganism.
is literally your
You
argument.
have.
Seeing the point.
You see, for example, why is it not veganism? Because human beings are only we are living in a very tiny island. If you look at history of this space, and if you look at the whole of human existence as a space in which we live in a very tiny island. This particular place, very tiny place, highly privileged. The principles that apply to life here are not extrapolatable outside of this very,
Okay,
very
can I
privileged domain.
just say,
You understand this?
well, okay, two things. You as an individual can make a choice. You don't have to be dictated
We
by
agree with
everybody
that.
else. And actually, we're privileged in this little island that you talk about to consume animals because in the most
and we
deprived
should avoid that.
countries in the world, they actually live on a vegan diet because most of that is beans, rice, pulses,
Well, it depends on where
those
you are.
sort of.
I agree. Depends on where you are,
Yeah.
of course. Depends on where you are. In some places you have only animal protein and you have to have that. For example, in the Eskimos and so on, right? There's no, in the tundra, you have to have not animal protein.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have animal protein. You can't have.
Well, you're not in the tundra.
No,
what
no.
are you doing?
Yeah.
You
But
don't need animal protein.
I agree. No,
you can go and get plant-based protein and get all your nutritional
I
needs.
said to you that we have agreed that those people who have the choice should exercise the choice on the side of compassion.
And you all
We
have
agree
the
with
choice.
that.
So are you
Right.
making that choice?
But you
Are you making that choice?
I avoid animal protein when I can, but I'm not actually vegan.
Why not?
Why don't you?
Because I don't think it's an absolute that needs to be adopted.
Why? You just said it was. If we had the choice.
I said, I don't think it's an absolute. I think that eating animal protein is bad for the ecology. It's bad. The methods of farming are bad. The environmental, the economical arguments against it are bad. It's generally bad. I agree, right? However,
But you're
it is-
still not adopting it. I
But
don't
no,
understand.
however,
You're completely agreeing with veganism.
all of these arguments are what we would call non-absolute arguments. So if the circumstances are different, then it would be okay.
But they're not different. That's the
They
point.
are different all generally.
They're not different.
live
You
in
have
a
the
society
choice.
where you have
You're-
an abundance of other
I've said to you,
products
I've said to you,
that have no
I hardly ever, in fact, I hardly ever eat meat, but I do eat something. All right? So I'm not very distant from where you are, but I do not think that you must realize, you must see what I'm saying, that this is you are adopting something as an absolute principle, which is not absolute principle.
That's what we're arguing against.
That's all.
Remember when I started with you? Remember when I started with this lady here? I said there are a lot of suffering happening, which we are against, and you can get a lot of this protein from plant-based. So Muslims or us here discussing,
Do you not see the point?
against, we're not against the idea of just consuming plant-based diet. What we're saying, your whole argument, like here, look at his argument here. SHITs appointed
That's his position. He's not an individual. He can argue it however he wants. We can argue it however we want.
But it's important, if you are going to bring an argument forward, you bring an argument for the good reasons, rather than your emotional reasons, relative moral standard reasons. And so. Bring something that is solid.
He's bringing the solid argument. Maybe he's presenting it emotionally.
We haven't brought solid argument. So far we have discussed. There wasn't solid argument.
Because
this is why.
Sorry, can I just? Everything that you said to me, you're agreeing with veganism.
No, not agreeing with veganism.
You are.
No. What is veganism? This ideology of veganism. What is it?
It's saying that in no circumstances should you eat meat.
You see, you're confusing your ideology with what
I don't accept that.
So if you look up the definition from veganism,
what is veganism?
With regard to the vegan society,
what is veganism?
What is it?
Yeah.
It's removing the exploitation of animals.
No. What is the difference between? Okay, let me ask. What is the difference between veganism and vegetarianism? There is a difference. That will precisely explain the difficulty. Tell me what the difference.
What do you mean?
What's the difference between a vegan and a vegetarian?
Well, a vegetarian.
It's diet, so it's consuming.
What's the difference? What's the difference between
Veganism is understanding that we're not sacrificing anything by not consuming these products. We're just not taking.
You had Google in your phone before. Now,
So,
if you don't know,
vegans
do you know the difference?
any
I can tell you what the
animal
difference is.
products
Do you know the difference between the two?
I know the
you
difference.
still
I'm explaining the difference to you, so we don't consume any animal products whatsoever. So that's diet. That's also in terms of what we consume by way of when we're purchasing, for example, clothing. Vegans don't buy anything that was made using leather, wool, down, because of those industries.
And vegetarians are willing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And vegetarians are willing.
Vegetarians
just don't eat meat.
Yeah.
So
They will eat. They will use leather for their
drink
shoes.
milk.
and
Yeah.
Yeah, and eat eggs. It's the direct slaughtering of animals that they're opposed to. Whereas veganism goes a step further and says, okay, any indirect slaughtering
So
of
we are
animals for
saying-
any reason, or exploiting animals in any way, where it is practically possible to do so, you remove them from your
Okay,
life.
so now I'm saying
not
I'm going to
even,
And I have the
even,
capacity.
it's not about exploitation. Even the animals
Why is
were.
it not?
Let me tell you then, and let me address this point. Suppose all the animals were not exploited. Would you then say you don't need to be vegan?
Well, how can you use an animal, eat them, and eat their byproducts, and wear them, and say you're not exploiting them? That doesn't make any sense.
Suppose you don't make any byproducts from animal origin.
No, but eat them.
Yeah. So eating is exploitation.
Why isn't it?
No, let's understand that. So
You're using the
let's
animal.
understand, back to the same circles again. Are you saying eating is exploitation?
Why isn't
When
it?
you're
It's
taking
taking
away
life
the
exploitation.
animal, yes.
Yeah.
So when you took a life of bacteria, were you committing exploitation?
Bacteria isn't sentient. It doesn't have
Now
a
it's not
central
about life
nervous
anymore.
system.
Regarding
I don't understand.
regarding exploitation.
There is a line to draw.
Oh